Hi, Vicki. Happy Saturday, and I am looking forward to our conversation. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
So we connected on LinkedIn. I
Mhm.
think I saw you post or comment on posts, and then I've seen you be pretty active, and I thought, oh, it would be fun to bring her on the podcast as a guest so you can tell us a little more what it is that you're focused on right now and how you got here. So maybe we can start with the first part. Can you tell us what are you doing?
Yeah, so I'm currently a organizational change management consultant. So I've been doing that for about 7 years. I kind of go back and forth between doing the OCM, the change management, and then I have a communications background. So I've got about 15, 20 years in communications that kind of transitioned me into the change management. So I do have both of those disciplines available. But I do like consulting quite a bit. I feel like it gives me a little more, um, control over my own career path versus, taking a full-time position at a company. So that's what I've been kind of focusing on and doing for the past 7 years.
Wow, very cool. And I was thinking, change management goes hand in hand with communication, huh?
Yes.
Perfect. So, change is such a buzzword, right?
Hmm.
All the companies, at least in the last few years, for sure, it's always about driving change. Change is the word of the day. So, can you tell us a bit more? What is a change management consultant?
Yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of people spend, companies spend, thousands of dollars to implement some type of change, right? Through projects, could be technical, it could be more organizational, like if they're doing a merger and acquisition. And so we focus on more of that project management piece, which is very focused on the technical aspects. It's making sure that, everyone's doing what they say they're doing and, they're checking all the boxes. If it's a technical implementation, it's usually focused on the build of a platform or the transition of their technology from one to another. But my focus is really on the impact to the end user or the people.
Hmm.
So I make sure that people are well informed, they're educated about the change that's happening, they understand why it's happening and try to get them to, be on board with the change more. Now, sometimes it depends on what the change is that you may not get a great response depending on what it is. Time if people feel like they know, what's happening, why is this happening. Also very important is like what happens if we don't do this, right? That's equally important. It could be a cost savings, it could be a time efficiency, it could be something else. And then going from there, it's like, what else would people need to know? Do they need to be trained? If they're getting a new system, training is a huge part of that. And then also making sure that they have the ability to use, if it's a system, to be able to use that system when it goes live, or if it's something like more processes and procedures, making sure that they are following those. And then I focus on after the fact, making sure that the adoption is there from the people perspective. So a system's no good if no one's going to use it. And you just wasted, thousands of dollars building this great new system. And so I make sure that we're tracking to make sure people are, you know, logging on, using the system, using it as it's intended. If it's more processes and procedural, like organizational change, that they're making sure that they're, reporting to new managers or they understand if they have a new pay plan or a pay frequency or anything like that. It's just some, examples that we have.
Mm,
But that's what I focus on. I'm focused on people having some tough conversations sometimes.
yeah, I bet. Well, thank you for that explanation. And can you tell us, like, so how did you get into change management? What led you up to this?
Yes, I worked for a technology company that and handling more SMB type of businesses. And I was their corporate communications and brand manager.
Mhm.
And then they wanted to diversify their portfolio. So they started to acquire some smaller businesses. And during the acquisitions, there's always a lot of change going on from, you're bringing on a business, you're bringing on the people. And then for the people that are impacted, what's it mean for them when they're joining a new organization? Um, and then from there, we kept adding more organizations on. And so then we did a mass reorganization of all the companies into one organization. And a big part of that was creating a new culture for the organization as well. And so during that process, I was doing change management, not even aware that change management was like a thing. I
Yeah.
didn't think about it, never heard of it, right? And we were doing all these change champions and making sure we're sending out communications and everything was happening with our culture as we were becoming one big company. And some people were very happy about it. Some people not so happy about it.
Mm.
So, I have a good working style where I'm able to kind of bend my own working style to meet someone else's. So I'm able to have, very good, tough conversations with people without making sure that they're being listened to and feel like they're being heard. And so I kind of got put into that position. And then unfortunately through that, we did a lot of reorganization, and my department was one of the departments that was reorganized, and found myself with no job.
Wow.
So yeah, they reorganized our communications and marketing department and disbanded. It was like 13 or 14 of us. And so at that point in my life, I was thinking, if I'm not going to do communications, what else could I do? And I
Because
had already been looking at project management because I had worked with our director of PMO, and he thought I had a really great skill set and I had that personality, the soft skills that really um, make great project managers. And so I'd been kind of mentored by him a little bit. And so I started to look at other paths for myself that incorporated my extensive background in communications as well as my interest in project management. And to me, that's organizational change management. It's very much project based, but it's a lot of communications, a lot of L&D, a lot of training, um, you know, focusing on the people, which is when I'm writing communications, my focus is always on my audience all the time. So that's kind of, I found a quote change management job, and I did a great job, I guess, of telling them figured I could do it. And they hired me for my first consulting contract, and I just haven't looked back.
wow. So when your communications job ended, um, did you intentionally like you knew you didn't want to do kind of the same thing or just like you didn't want to do another comms role?
I did a short comms role as a contract. I'd never been a contractor before, but
Mhm.
actually started to talk to somebody that had been more of that consultant contracting
Mhm.
to see if that was something I was even interested in. So I
Mhm.
did a short consulting contract with Monsanto as they were getting acquired by Bayer,
Mhm.
and help them transition through their United Way campaign. That was like my first kind of dipping my toe into the consulting contracting area. And then I ended up getting a internal communications manager position at a healthcare technology company. And I did that for about a year, and then they kind of reorganized their company, and for some reason, we got put under the finance guys. We were in HR. I was in HR at that point, but we got put in finance. And our previous CEO, our previous executive, had been a all work remote is great. Come in once a quarter to the office. And the new finance executive he liked to be in office.
Mm.
And so they're like, we want you to move. And I was like, wasn't interested in moving to the location. So so I just transitioned, helped them find somebody, train that person, and then just started to look at what did I want to do next. Was it communications? I felt like I was a little bit burned out on it.
Mm.
Um,
That's what I
I
was
was
wondering
really,
if
yeah,
it was.
really into the project. I really liked the project stuff I was being able to work on. And so then started to really look into the change management rules as I was as I knew I was going to be phasing out of my internal communications management position. I really started to look at change management.
And how did you, so you had the communications background,
Mhm.
you know you like project management or leading projects. How did you arrive at kind of the change management? Did you see, was it because like you said your role was morphing and you realized that I was already doing a lot of change management or kind of
Mhm.
you get that path?
Yeah, it was really just happenstance. I think I was looking online for positions, and I think I typed in like communications and project management,
Mm,
and this role popped up, and it said like change management consultant, and I was like, "What's that?" So I was looking into it and started to read more about it, and then researched exactly what it was, and felt like I did have a great skill set to kind of move my career into that path, because it was a lot of communications. It was a lot of training, which I had a background in. Had a lot of instructional design that I've kind of helped with in the past. So yeah, started to really research that and thought, oh gosh, like this could be really something. And it just happened that the company I had the original communications contract with was the same company that had a change management consulting opportunity with. And so I'd had great feedback from the clients. And so they were like, oh my gosh, like, yeah, we'd love to have you on again as a consultant. So then they kind of got me connected with the client and ended up getting that position.
wow. That's so cool. So, what would be your advice for somebody kind of like in similar situation that they've had a career, years, over a decade, many times in a function, within a discipline, but they feel a bit burnt out, feel like there's some kind of void, they're kind of going through motions. Um, but they don't know what is the next step or
Mhm.
kind of what would be better suited. Um, so that's why I wanted to ask you about how you got to change management, and do you have any advice of how to kind of how to engineer that path towards what's next? What could be a better fit?
Yeah, I hired a person, right? Someone to help me do that because I was feeling not fulfilled by being in communications. So I hired a coach, was one of the way, and it was the best money I've ever spent. Still connected with her as well. I've used the guidance that she gave me. I continue to use to this day. I pass it along when I can. So she really helped me kind of pinpoint my next step in my career. So with my career coach, and we looked at my resume when I kind of started to look at the change management field. She helped me kind of, and she didn't write my resume for me. She just gave me really great ideas on how to make my resume more uh, geared towards a change management role rather than a communications role. So taking all that great experience that I've built over the last, 15 or so years and morphing it into something that was more change management friendly, right? So people when they looked at my resume, they weren't thinking, oh, this is a communications person. It was more of a, oh, this is be a good person for a change management role. So if you're not able to do that on your own, a lot of people aren't, right? A lot of people, especially I'm gonna say in my age group, that don't find themselves without a job. It's kind of a shock sometimes. And I feel like the best thing to do is to hire an outside person to help you figure out what your next step is going to be and how to do that. And it's someone more, it's not a resume writer, it's actually a career coach that can help you do that. Resume writers are great. I've never personally used one because I have that background, but I've written lots of resumes for people that don't. But I felt like the best money I've ever spent was with a career coach.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because like it sounds like you got to really good clarity, like okay, using the communication skills and being aware that you like project management or project work and then kind of tying it in. It's like a perfect formula like for change management. And that yeah, and I think a lot of people misunderstand career coaching that it's resume
Mhm.
writing, which
Yeah.
that's just a surface level, right? Only one angle, or not necessarily even career coaching. It's more like resume, like, there's so many things that can go into it.
Yeah. So, I mean, a good career coach is going to ask you, like, if you're paying for a session, you need to come with what you want to get out of that session. It's not their session, it's your session. So I had a really great career coach, and she was very adamant about, okay, what's our focus today? Are we going to be looking at your resume? Are we going to be doing interviewing? You know, what does that look like today? And then that's what we'd focus on. And it was a jam-packed hour. Like it was nonstop. No breather, no like, that was just kind of like this. It was very detailed, very quick. I did go to one of my sessions was on interviewing.
Hmm.
So, helping me create that elevator speech, right? That's so important. How to answer some of the tough questions, like what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? The salary question, oh, huge help. I've always used it since. It works every single time. Also, and then I think the next time we worked on my resume, and she's, like I said, she wasn't a writer, but she helped me think of ways to deconstruct my current resume and be able to build another one and to be able to build it for jobs that I was interested in. So not if it wasn't, a change management role, if I wanted to do something different, how to make sure that I am building out my resume to speak to that position.
Mm, perfect. No, that's amazing. Because sometimes it's hard for us to see from from we see what we see, but we need an outside perspective. And what can you tell us like how did you feel before and after? Like, do you feel like the change management is much more aligned to you and your strengths and kind of personality and impact you're looking to make and how you work in day to day versus a communication? Or do you think it was just like an evolution and like both of them are equal, have been equally rewarding to you?
I actually like to do both. So that's really why I do love change management is because I still get to do the communications portion of it, but I really like managing the project side as well because the unlike a project manager, I mean they're managing like architects potentially and all the project people, but I also have my own resources too. So sometimes I'm working with maybe I'm working with a communications person, or I'm working with an instructional designer or a trainer or whoever it might be. And those are my resources. And those are people that I'm in charge of and making sure that they're getting, all their things done so that we can be successful. So and making sure they're getting them done in time. So I get a project management perspective as well. And then I also get to do the communications
Mm-hmm.
because we're always doing communications, whether it's, if you have a change advocacy board, it's presenting in front of them, it's presenting, kind of what the project is, what you're going to do for change management. It's to stakeholders, it's to end users, it's to people that are impacted. So you have multiple different audiences that you need to write communications for or develop them. So it may be a video, it might be scripts, it may be, kind of updates. So I still get to do that unless I have a resource, but still kind of get to direct that work too. So for me, it's the best of both worlds. I can do communications and I can do project work. And
Yeah, that's perfect. How did you get into communications? Did you go to school to that for that and then?
It's my mom's fault.
Yeah.
Growing up, I read a lot of books, and anytime I probably didn't know a word or how to, say something, she'd tell me to go look it up all the time. So I used to tell her it's her fault that I was in communications. I actually started in advertising. I was a media planner and buyer, and then it ended up being able to proofread. I was working at an advertising agency, and they were like, "Hey, are you the media planner buyer that can also proofread?" And I was like, "Yes." So I kind of started to get into the communications part as a proofreader, and then just any like marketing position I went into, I was always asked to write um, different things, and just kind of gradually went into the communications role. So it wasn't a plan at all. I was actually planning just to be in marketing and be a media planner and buyer, but I was able to do business development and things because of my communication skills.
Wow, very cool. And what makes you come most alive, like from what you do, right, on day-to-day basis as a change manager? Maybe you can give people an insight, how does a day in the life of looks like, right? If somebody might consider that as a possibility, and what energizes you about kind of the day-to-day of a change manager?
I love to develop plans and I'm very organized. So it really helps because I always love in job descriptions they talk about must be okay with like ambiguity, right? I'm like, that's my everyday. So because projects are interesting, it can change in a moment. And I just had a recent project I was working on, and we had a go live date of January 1. And then they decided it was going to be November 1st. We're changing that. So because I had the entire plan built out from a change management perspective, we had a great communications team. I was already developing a lot of the job aids that we'd be using throughout and things. I was able to very easily switch the date and kind of break out two of the projects. So it was like one big project, and we kind of broke it into two projects. So it was kind of interesting because it's like, oh, it's kind of like, oh no. But because I had a great plan, it was pretty easy to do. And then I just was like, that's a big high five.
Yeah,
If
because
you don't have a great plan, it's going to be just kind of running around in circles trying to figure out what's going on. So I love planning. It's my favorite.
that's awesome. Yeah, because I mean, change people resist change, and like many
Mhm.
people perceive and feel like change is very stressful.
Yeah, so change can be very stressful, right? Because people don't know what's happening, they don't know what's going on. I've talked to executives before that don't want to send out any communications because they don't know the answers. And it's not about people having all the answers, it's about informing people about what's going on and how it's going to impact them. And that's really the scary part, right? It's like, oh my gosh, like this is changing, but how is it going to impact me? How is my job or my livelihood, depending on what the change is, how am I going to be impacted? Should I be concerned? What's going to be going on throughout the next couple of months? Will I have to learn a new system? Will I have to be trained? Am I going to switch managers? It could be anything like that. So I think just making sure that we're you know creating that awareness for people, we're educating them about what's happening, why is it happening, how is it going to impact them, and then just following through, um, making sure that we are having a very transparent open lines of communication so they feel that they can ask questions and get if even if you don't know the answer from an executive standpoint, it's okay to say I don't know, but I'll find out, and then let people know when you find out. So
Okay.
I think that's where the stress comes because people don't understand like what the end result is, and people always like get like, I'm not going to tell anybody because I don't want to be wrong, or I don't want to say the date isn't right. my dates change, and that's what you kind of just have to be very transparent about.
So, okay, what I've seen happen, I feel like change management right now is if I kind of put the focus or take it, from employees to, from manager or leader perspective, it feels like every leader is in a position of being a change manager, and so many of like there's a quite a few changes, continuous improvements being driven from, across different functions, from systems to processes to tools to, how things are being measured and metrics, there's like ongoing quite a bit of change being managed and driven continuously, constantly, and through the leaders. It's kind of almost assumed, right, that a
Mhm.
lot of leaders don't get a change manager, right? They are the ones driving the change while doing, leading the team to deliver what they need to deliver to customers, right? It's kind of like a part of the management or leadership job as well. So what would you say as an expert in change management for people who are in management or leadership positions and they do feel like there's a lot of change or continuous change being driven? Um, and, there's also, you're leading a team. What are most important things to focus on to be effective? Because like no change or slowing down the change is really not an option many times. And, you can get like people on the receiving end always like saying, oh, there's too much change. Like there's change
Mhm.
fatigue, and it's like, what do you do? So what would be your advice as a, for advice for managers?
Yeah, so that's actually, part of my job, right? Is people do have this misnomer that, oh, you're a people leader, you're a manager, you're executive, that you automatically know how to
Right.
do change. Right?
Yeah.
Like, no. I mean, if they haven't been involved in change before, change management, they're not going to know. So it's my job to make it a little bit easier for them. It's to provide that coaching, right? Especially for people that are, in the people leader role, right? They have employees. So, it's providing them with talking points. It's providing them even with job aids that are manager focused on how to talk about this change with their employees. Preparing and coaching them to be change advocates. So I have a great story of a tale of two executives, right? So I had one executive that he would come to me and we'd have conversations about change management, and he was very excited about it and was open to learning about it. And he always made it a point to print out all of our newsletters and talk about the things that were happening in them with his during his team meetings and posted it outside of his door. And his all his employees were very well informed and knew about the change, and it was very successful in that part. On the flip side, I had another executive leader that wasn't involved in the change. He didn't care about it. He didn't do any of that, and some people are very confused, like, well, I didn't know this was happening. What's going on? Getting those kinds of questions from his employees because he was not being that change advocate. So, talking to him about, hey, Tom, this might be a good idea if you talk to your employees about XYZ because this change is going to be coming up and they should know about it. And, kind of, mentoring him along to be a change advocate. So, and I always find I like to do like management sessions sometimes on something very new, because I feel like we automatically assume our managers know how to do this, and we don't give them the opportunity to ask the questions that they maybe need to ask. And so my current consulting opportunity right now, I came in and we're launching a new 3-day onboarding program. And I was like, okay, great, let's talk to the managers. And they're like, oh, we don't want to do that. Um, we've sent out lots of communications and they know about it. And I said, but they're only going to pay attention to it when they have somebody they're hiring. I said, so if they're not hiring anybody, they're probably not paying attention to it. And I said, but when they hire somebody, they're going to be like, uh-oh, you know? And so I kind of, I don't say made them do like these manager prep sessions, but I highly recommended it. And I just kept at it with them. Like, I really think these would be great. And so finally, they agreed to do some,
Mm-hmm.
and the managers loved them. So we did them with people that were actually hiring people, right? If you were hiring somebody, you could go to this prep session. You can learn all about this new launch, this new onboarding program we were doing. And they came and they had questions, and I followed up with a few of them afterwards and just asked them, how was that? And they're like, oh my gosh, that was great. We've never done that before. And we really appreciate it because
Mm-hmm.
I knew exactly what I needed to do, and what it was going to look like. And they were, and then of course other people found out about it, and they were like, my next project, they're kind of like, hey, we do those sessions. So
So it's
it did
like
catch on.
sessions with people. So these are sessions with people who are most affected by the change or impacted by the change.
It's sessions with managers, right? So to talk to the managers, so if once we send out information to employees that are impacted,
Mm-hmm.
because who's the first person they're going to go to ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
Probably their manager.
Mm-hmm.
So it's preparing managers on, what's going on, why is it happening, giving them all that great information, giving them the talking points, walking them through, kind of the change, and, giving them some of the answers in case their employees have questions. And if
Mm-hmm.
they don't know the answers, and they can say, you know what, I'm going to go and find out because I'm the manager and I'm going to contact my contact about what's going on.
So what would be your advice for people who, employees that are in departments that there's constant change and, many times it's not as well organized and it's like continuous change going on all the time. And they are having a hard time managing it or dealing with it or accepting it.
Yeah, so we have a lot of change going on. I'm on a contract now that are doing a merger, going through a merger. So there's a lot of change. And my advice to employees, especially if they don't maybe have that manager that is that change advocate, is just to make sure that they know what's being sent out. A lot of times there's a lot of stuff going out all the time, usually through different channels. What's available in your organization? Are they doing newsletters? Are they, the intranet? Maybe it's talking with an HR person if it's more HR related. Making sure that they're aware of all the channels of communication so that they can be informed about what's going on. And I know sometimes when there's a lot of change, it's like, oh, like another newsletter, another news flash, or whatever it might be. But it's so important, just to kind of keep tabs on what is going on during these very volatile situations when there might be lots of change going on, and to keep track of exactly what's happening and being informed. But I mean, I can send out a lot of different things in a lot of different ways, but if people aren't reading it, it's not going to make much of an impact. So,
Yeah, I think that's
and
exactly.
getting, yeah, and getting leaders involved too, those executives, making sure that the sponsors are being active as well in the whole change process too really helps.
Yeah, because I've even heard people say, because there is this change being pushed by emails, PowerPoints, newsletters, by customers, your function, your larger function, your manager. I mean, I've heard people say, I just don't read them because I'm just blocking
Hmm.
it out.
Yeah,
So pe many people do exactly the opposite. They just don't read.
that's why it's very important to get those managers on board. A lot of times I feel like if you can get a manager to kind of change how they're doing things, they'll see more of an impact, making sure that when they're having, I mean, most managers have team meetings or meetings of some sort, and, bringing it up in those meetings and conversations. It's kind of employees shadow what their managers do because that's who they look to. And that's like known. I mean, I've got my ProSci certification, and that's a big one is that, people are going to managers for information. And so the manager attitude on how they're adopting a change is a huge influence on their employees.
Okay.
So if a manager isn't adopting the change necessarily, it's always good to have like a little one-on-one conversation, a
Okay.
little mentoring and coaching for that manager.
Okay. Yeah, no, that's a good point. And like if somebody's interested in the career, like how what would be kind of the initial resources or some kind of certification or training program that would give somebody a good insight and foundation into change management? What would you recommend?
Well, the buzzword is the ProSci.
What is the buzzword?
ProSci, PROSCI. It's called ProSci, and they have
PROS.
PROSCI.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
Yeah, and they have their methodology is ADKAR.
Okay.
It's awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement. And that's kind of their process. But there are other ones out there. That's just the one that most organizations are familiar with. And I'm going to say it's easy to get certified, but it's a 3-day workshop you can attend. Used to be in person pre-COVID. Now it's online. But it's very 3 full days, and you bring a current project you have and you apply their methodology to that, and then you present it at the end, and then there's knowledge checks throughout the entire 3-day course as well to make sure that you are understanding the content being presented, and then you're evaluating on your project and how you apply the ADKAR methodology for change management to it. But that's one of them. You can also get different specialties as well. The Association of Change Management Professionals has different certifications that you can look into. So there's a lot of different ones, but the ProSci is the most well known.
And how about like something more entry level, right? Without like if somebody's just exploring, like because when you type in like search books for change management or there's so much, like it's an overwhelming amount. We like what would maybe a step before if somebody's just exploring it as a, career option before committing like to full on like 3-day certification.
Yeah, the ProSci has a great website,
Okay.
and they are jam packed with they do blogs all the time. They have a book that actually I really like the book. I've had my book for probably 6 or 7 years, and got the pages all like highlighted and go through and stuff. So the book is really great. Their website is a great wealth of information. LinkedIn, Tim Creasy, he's kind of oversees the ProSci um, organization itself, and he's always putting things on LinkedIn.
What's the path forward for you, Vicky?
Still just working on my change management consulting. I've kind of, I just go from opportunity to opportunity. I was talking to someone the other day. I said, I'm kind of like Mary Poppins a little bit. So
I love Mary Poppins.
I go when people need me, and then when I have, provided the services and things and they're okay on their own, then I kind of leave and I go to find someone else that needs me. So that's kind of what I'm doing now. So I'm kind of ramping down on my current consulting contract and looking for my next one. So the life of a consultant, are we with kind of some of the positions that are going more to on-site or even hybrid. I'm not in a location that is very on the change management train yet. So it's been a little more difficult probably the last 6 months or so to find opportunities, but they're still out there. So I've looked at, I'm currently doing some in the process of getting my project management professional certification, so I can just have a little more flexibility in my career.
Okay, that's understandable. And how, since you're consulting, right, you're in a position that you have to either network or scout for jobs or apply to jobs quite frequently. And right now, a lot of people find themselves, there have been a lot of layoffs. A lot of people find themselves in a pretty tough job market. Like, what would be your recommendations on kind of the top activities of how to land the position?
I think networking is probably my top one. It's the best that I've kind of found. I've gotten many of my positions have been through networking, not posted necessarily.
Mhm.
I get a position at Microsoft. I worked for Microsoft for about 9 months, and that was through another colleague I used to work with, and she is a consultant. The position I've been doing for the last year plus was a former director I used to work with in change management. She went to a different company and they needed some change management help, so she brought me on as well. So it's really networking, keeping those great connections that you have. If you're, like I said, I work with a lot of great people, and the great people I always keep connected with on a regular basis. And then, working with recruiters as well, although they're can be good and bad. There's a few good recruiters, and then there's a whole lot of recruiters that aren't so good. But to find those good ones and just keep kind of in contact with them. And I always found too, if you can bring candidates to them, then that's a good relationship as well. So a lot of times I've gotten positions where I'm like, I'm probably not the person that you need, but I know somebody. Let me ask them. Or let me see who's looking. I'm not looking right now, but let me see in my network who's looking. And I've, passed along candidates to other people. I mean, I've gotten lots of other people jobs
Yeah,
too.
networking.
Yeah, networking. Yeah, absolutely.
Perfect. Is there anything, Vicky, that I didn't ask that you would want to share? Anything about your journey? Anything else?
I think if anyone is thinking about consulting, there's good and bad to it, right? So the great part of it is that typically it's a higher rate than what you get paid as a salary. A lot of recruiting firms or anything that are starting to really offer some benefits as well. So there's some out there that will offer 401k and health benefits. So that used to be one of those things that they didn't offer at all. So it was really hard for people to go into consulting. But there, some of the bigger consulting firms are definitely offering those. So make sure that you do your homework and make sure that you're checking on that. Not all of them offer PTO, but again, you get a higher rate. So I feel like that's kind of a wash. And I feel like it allows me to control my career because I can say, oh, I want to take this, contracting, consulting for a little bit. And maybe I want to take some time off. So then I don't have to take something if I don't want to, or
Yeah.
my rate can change depending on what the position might be. So I can control what rate if I don't want to take a opportunity because the rate's too low, then I just say no, thank you. So I kind of control my own salary in that perspective too. The flip side is that sometimes consultants and organizations aren't treated as full-time employees because you're not, so you may have limited access
Mhm.
which can be a hindrance sometimes, depending on what you're doing on getting things done. Um, you don't have that security blanket of a full-time position. So, you may go a couple weeks, you may go a couple months without something if there's not an opportunity out there. So just being prepared from a financial standpoint to kind of fill those voids. So
Yeah.
when you're getting the salary that you save some so that when you may have a void that you can handle that too. Um, and then yeah, just kind of networking, and if you're a great consultant, word gets around, and then you can people will help you find new other opportunities that come up too. So good and bad, but I find that there's probably more good than the bad.
Thank you for sharing that. Those are excellent points. And also, it gives you an insight into the culture, into the
Mhm.
company to evaluate if that's, where you would want to work longer term and full time.
Yeah, so you can see if you're a fit with their culture. It also gives you a good opportunity to really get into other industries as well. I mean, I've worked at a electric company. I've worked at Microsoft. I've worked for consulting, other consulting companies with Salesforce implementations and public sector, like government. And now I'm working at a pest control company. So,
Mhm.
so it gives you the opportunity to get into different industries and kind of, be flexible in that part of it. So yeah.
It might be a good aspect for people who get bored
Hmm.
easily, who like kind of new projects, new change.
Yeah, if you're bored, then I don't know what you're doing change management at, because it's every project is different.
Mm.
Stakeholders change all the time. Project managers change. So it's a lot of change in the change management area for sure.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
And And have you found, like, from all your varied experiences, like, so a lot of people are longing for good culture, and it's truly very hard for people to assess until you're in the company, because, of course, all the companies on their websites say the right thing. Have you found, like, and what would be your advice, how to find a truly, good people-focused culture?
Depends on what you want, really. I mean, I think culture is one of those things that it's different for everyone. There's some people that they're fine with the kind of culture where you go in, you do your job, your day ends, you're done with your job, right? They don't need all puppies at the office, free donuts, all that kind of stuff. And then there's other people that are looking for more of a connection, within the organization itself, like from a culture perspective, like are there groups I can join or get to know their employees, or what does that look like? For some people it's, maybe they're very into sustainability. What is the company doing to protect the environment? That's a big, depending on what the industry is. Could be a focus as well. And then also, how involved can you be with like your executive team? I think executives kind of dictate what the culture is. So how open and transparent are they about what the culture might be at the organization, and if that's something they're looking for? But it really depends. I've building out a culture from scratch out of 5 different companies has been very interesting. And you learn really quick that not everyone wants the same thing. There are
Of
people that are like all in. They want to go to all the events. They want to do all this stuff. They want
course.
to be part of the, very intricate part of the company. And there's other people are just like, yep, clocking in, clocking out, and I'm good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, two people can't agree on lunch to,
Yeah, right. Yeah.
lunch, let alone a culture. How do you build a culture? Now you opened up a whole can of worms.
Yeah. Yeah, that's another podcast.
Well, thank you for talking to me and connecting with us after your 5K. You must.
You're welcome. I'm all energized right now. Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for your time. Is there any way you want people to connect with you or follow you? If so, you can
Yeah, they
just
can.
share.
I'm on LinkedIn. So yeah, if you want to connect with me, make sure that you send me a note. I don't really like people when they just send me a connection with no information on there about where they know me from or why they're interested in connecting with me. I always include a message whenever I'm sending out a connection request to someone about, hey, I'm very interested in connecting with you because I saw you here, or I see that we have a lot of connections in common. So that's the only thing I ask, is if people want to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm on there pretty frequently and will definitely entertain any connections that have a message on why.
Perfect. Well, Vicky, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.